the Sunday night live stream. It's time to talk a little Longhorn 4-0 football, number one ranking, all that good stuff. 51-3 victors last night over ULM Warhawks. The Texas Longhorns guys, again, they are putting some points on the board for the third time in 4 games. The Longhorns scored more than 50 points. That is, pretty darn good for the Longhorn faithful. For those of us who suffered from a little bit of the opposite effect for the last 10 years or so, this is nice to see Texas really starting to show some real firepower on offense at multiple positions. Last night, Jaden Blue, the running back, really went off. 4 touchdowns overall, 3 running, 1 receiving, 124 yards rushing, I believe, as well. The defensive performance in the second half was absolutely suffocating, only allowing 8 total yards in the second half, including -4 yards on 4 possessions in the third quarter, immediately following 2 drives that ULM had put together late in the second quarter. You wondered how Texas would respond. They did so. Anyways, I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Jerry Hamilton and Rod Babers of On Texas Football. This Sunday night live stream brought to you by our friends over at The Rogue Shop. Make sure you use discount code ONTexas if you're going to shop at therogueshop.com. All right, Rod and Jerry, I'm going to start with you guys before we get to questions and everything today. Any kind of thoughts about the college football weekend as a whole, and then we'll dive deeper into the Texas Longhorns. What did you see, Jerry, yesterday in college football that caught your attention?
I think Ohio State and Texas, while they may have a little different personnel, maybe very similar, they can just kind of overwhelm somebody in a short amount of time. Because, Marshall's a pretty good G5 team. They're kind of rolling along, competing, and poof, game's over. I mean, yeah. I think Ohio State has that capability. If you're looking for another team that has that capabilities, that's bad news for Michigan later on the season. But I thought Michigan had a great win for Texas. Not that all this matters as much anymore, but that's still – look, Michigan just ran the ball up and down on the West Coasters, ran the ball up and down the field. Now, they didn't in the third quarter, but when they needed to, they did. And I think they rushed for, almost 300 yards in that game, or over 250. And they did it without a threat of a passing game. So that was a big win for Michigan. Oklahoma is really, guys, going to have to overcome injuries. I mean, they lost their cheetah for the year. That was a nasty injury. Deion Burks out. We don't know how long. Nick Anderson re-injured the quad second series. How long will he now be out? That's kind of one of the things we watch with Quinn. Don't come back until you're 100% ready. I think you felt like they need to get him on the field to give their now second-string quarterback some help. Oklahoma, Michael Hawkins, as we've been saying, is the best quarterback for that team and their program. Their offensive line struggle, but Tennessee's really good. Tennessee's got a good front. Those are my takeaways. Here's my other takeaway, Rod Babers. Mississippi State rush defense. And I'm not going to count Eastern Kentucky. 3 Power 4 teams. Arizona State, 346 yards rushing. Toledo, 169 yards rushing. Florida, 226 yards rushing. And the Mississippi State defense, if that's not enough, is allowing 77.3% completions to the 3 Power 4 teams. So you can't stop the run or the pass.
Yeah. So you're saying that, hey, it's like one of those where, they made 1 D and 4 Fs, and they said, hey, which one? You spent too much time in the class that you made the D. You need to make more Ds. Maybe make D minuses there. So. Hey, no, seriously, Rod, what did you think of this weekend's football?
To Jerry's point, I saw those Florida quarterbacks. The completion percentage was something like 92% or some crazy number. Like, I thought it was fake and went and looked it up myself. But yeah, they completed over 90% of their passes versus Mississippi State. Yeah, Mississippi State's got some issues. Honestly, Texas's rivals have issues. I mean, Arkansas is the only one that looks like they're actually going to be a little bit better than we all assume. But Oklahoma, A&M barely pulling out one versus who was that, Bowling Green that they played. So I'm not. Listen, a win is a win, but it just doesn't look like the rivals that Texas has to play this season are going to be prolific offensively. And I don't know how they're going to keep up with Texas. Even I like that Oklahoma defense. Actually, their back seven still is pretty good, even with the injuries they got on defense now. but I just don't know how they keep up in shootout. And Texas can make it a shootout, and they can separate from you, as Jerry mentioned quickly. They got that, that ability to, like the Golden State Warriors, to go on a run. And when they go on that run, I don't know how an Oklahoma offense or an A&M offense will keep up with them. And I agree with Jerry. Some teams are starting to look a little bit differently than the rest of the college football and the rest of their peers. Ohio State being one of them. Ole Miss looks really good. We'll see if when they get tested, but they look like they can go. Like they'll be able to, they can score with Texas. They need to score defensively. They can make some plays. Tennessee's kind of like that, even though I thought they beat Oklahoma by a little bit more. Shows you that Oklahoma, at least defensively, they are the real deal. But yeah, I mean, it's right now still with Texas, even with the backup quarterback and Arch, having growing pains, and they still look like a team that can play as good, if not better, than any team in the country, and that's amazing with a backup quarterback. Now, when Arch's growing pains in the SEC, if he's going to start versus Mississippi State, you're going to pay a heftier price, all right, for those growing pains. But I do think that Texas still, even with Arch in there, still looks like they're the best team in the country. They look like the number one team in the country. I'll say that.
Hey, Bobby, let me hit a question for our chat before we get to the next thing. Alabama, Georgia predictions for the chat. Huge game in college football this weekend. Obviously, Georgia at Alabama, coming off that 1-point win at Kentucky. Both had an off week, similar to Texas OU coming up. Off week for both schools. Who do y'all like in Georgia at Bama Saturday?
Oh, I tell you what, I'm going to go with. I'm actually going to go with Georgia. I think Georgia's fit to be tied right now after that loss in the SEC championship. I'm not saying, however, that I think that Bama won't eventually make the college football playoff because I do think they're one of the best 12 teams at this point in time. But Georgia has been smarting from that loss and got kicked, did not make the college football playoffs after just one loss last year. So that's where I'm going. I'm going with Georgia. I know a lot of people are saying Kalen DeBoer in Alabama since it's at home. Not so sure about that. I think Georgia's going to have a defensive plan for them.
If I'm Kirby, I call in extra Uber and Lyft drivers this week and say, guys, here's your transportation.
Yeah. Rod, you going Alabama or Georgia, buddy?
Oh man, that was tough. I don't know if I've even totally made my mind up because I haven't done enough research on it, honestly. But early on, I'm leaning Georgia, but I'll reserve the right to change my mind once I do some deep dive and some rabbit hole research about it. But right now, I think I'll lean Kirby Smart in Georgia right now. But I'm with you. I love Kalen DeBoer, man. I think Kalen DeBoer I think he is one of the best coaches in college football, and it's not even like he's up there with the elites, in my opinion. And he'll have another chance to prove it. I mean, look, he's outcoached Sark on 2 occasions, and Sark is right now. Look at the way Sark is coaching, and Kalen DeBoer has bested him twice. That ain't easy lately. So Kalen DeBoer will have something up his sleeve. I'm sure of that.
It'll be interesting because who's the better quarterback? I like Quinn Ewers a lot. Okay, so I think he's going to be a first-round pick. But there was no doubt in last year's Sugar Bowl, Michael Penix ended up going 8 overall. He was probably ahead of Quinn Ewers, right? Year before, Michael Penix was ahead of Quinn Ewers. Now, if they were – you get my point, right? Kalen DeBoer has had a better quarterback each time he played. Not necessarily talent-wise, but at least from a play-wise. So, I felt like Kalen DeBoer a little bit he came close to losing that game last year, and it wasn't necessarily he turtled a little bit in that game in the fourth quarter, in my opinion. But they did win. They went and played for the national championship. Horseshoes and hand grenades, only 2 things that count when you're close. All right, I did want to say this real quick as it relates to the national picture. That Michigan USC game. You're right, Jerry. They ran the ball. But they only had 32 yards passing.
Yeah.
That and believe me, Michigan is not Navy running the triple option. They literally they did not have a first down, I think, in the third quarter when USC decided to just load up against the run. But then they popped that big one, and it was I thought that was a really good game, and I do think that has college football playoff implications for Texas. Because that already puts two teams that are in the top 10 to 15 right now, in Michigan and USC, both hovering around that level, right? That puts Texas squarely ahead of both of those guys.
Yep.
So the way I look at it there is pretty straightforward.
Hey, somebody has a good point in the chat that I want to bring up on that. Randy D. Jones, why can't people see USC couldn't tackle air? And my point on that, sorry, chat's moving fast, was to say this. Like Brent Venables, it's taken him 3 seasons to get Oklahoma's defense physical where he wants it.
Yeah.
D'Anton Lynn's a really good coach. You can't make USC physical overnight. And that's what you saw Saturday. You don't go from an awful defense to a team that's going to be physical and stop the run against a really good running attack and win the physicality battle in 4 games. Doesn't happen that way. It took Venables 3 years, guys, to get his defense there.
Hey, let's speaking of the chat, I want to go to that now. But before I do, I want to ask Rod Babers to do us a favor and talk about our sponsor on Sunday night, our friends over at the Rogue Shop.
All right. Thanks, Bobby. Happy to do it, folks. Well, thank you to our sponsor, RogueShop.com. That's RogueShop.com. Rogue Shop is bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. Rogue Shop ships nationwide. Make sure you use the promo code ON Texas to get a special discount from our friends over at Rogue Shop. The Rogue Shop has it all, from oils and creams to flour and gummies. Again, that's RogueShop.com. Make sure to use the code ON Texas and you'll get that special discount with our friends from RogueShop.com. We appreciate them for sponsoring our Sunday night live stream here at ON Texas Football.
Thank you very much, Rod B. Now let's get to the questions. Let's start with William Niche. This one, guys, does Sark play Ewers Saturday? Or do they wait and give him an extra week off? Because after Mississippi State this weekend, Longhorns have an off week before they tussle with the Sooners in Dallas. Guys, I'm not sure I have the right answer on this one. I think I let Quinn Ewers' injury actually decide that. What do y'all think? Y'all have different thoughts on this?
You let Quinn Ewers' injury or the play of Arch Manning, right?
Yeah.
You got to weigh those. Those are your 2 things you're weighing. The play of Arch Manning, do you think you're confident enough in the play of a young Arch that he'll make enough of an improvement that you are sure you'll beat Mississippi State with him as a starting quarterback and the benefits of resting Quinn Ewers? I right now, go with Arch for another start against Mississippi State. I think you're good enough to beat Mississippi State with Arch Manning. It may be ugly. It may not be pretty. It may not be a blowout, but I think you can do it. And I think the benefits long-term for the health of Quinn are far outweigh any of the risks in that.
You said that. You said that today on the second watch that you did, Rod, that you would like to see him play one more start just so he gets some of the kinks out of his game while he has that recent memory to work off of, right?
Yep. He needs to be coached up. Right? He looked like a freshman quarterback that's going to have growing pains, and there's things he needs to work on, and I'd love to see him work on that. And I know that's asking a lot in versus Mississippi State to open up SEC play. Trust me. So I get it. That is a risk. I think it's a risk you can take because I think you can win. Your defense can help you win games. Your defense is playing at an elite level right now. I think special teams, you're still one of the better special teams units in the country, but I think there are other ways you can win. And I think against Mississippi State, you can make enough plays, even if there are growing pains against Mississippi State, you'll make enough plays on offense where I think you'll score enough points to beat them. So I'm confident you could do that. And I would give Quinn as much time as possible to recover and get as close to completely healthy as he can. Because if you rush him out there and then he re-injures it, then
that's the issue. That's the issue.
Then
he's gone for OU and Georgia for sure.
Exactly. And then, by the way, that may happen. I'm knocking on wood, knocking on a lot of wood here. All right, that could happen anyway. But then at least you would have the solace as a coach. You would have the comfort of knowing I did everything I could. I rested him as long as I possibly could. I gave him as much time as I could to recover if he does injure himself. But if you put him out there prematurely and he injures himself, you're going to think, damn, I probably should have gave him more time to rest.
And you didn't give Arch the chance to get a little bit better too.
Yes.
To see that big jump.
Yeah, I think the worst thing, and obviously it's going to be dependent on where the Texas athletic trainers and Quinn say he is.
Yep.
But the worst thing that could happen for this season is Quinn, and this is how we're talking about on the Watch With Us, Coach Shipley. Some Mississippi State defensive lineman has his hand around your waist, and you try to rip through your core and throw a ball away. Then you re-injure that thing, you're out a month or more.
Mm-hmm.
So Sark's in a tough spot there with this because, and I hear the people say Quinn he doesn't need to be rusty, but Quinn's missed games, came back for OU and ripped them up once before. Now Oklahoma's better on defense, and they're going to be starting Davis Bevel, but it's not like Quinn doesn't have that in his memory bank that, hey, I've set out before and came back and was perfectly fine. I think whenever Quinn comes back, he's going to play at a high level. I don't expect he was playing at too high of a level before his injury. I think he's a third-year starting quarterback. I think he's fine. I think the worst thing that could happen is some guy from Mississippi State gets his hand around his waist and he injures that thing. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Then your season's on the brink a little bit.
Yep.
The outlook definitely changes. The outlook definitely changes of it. And then I don't think you are the number one team in the country with Arch Manning at quarterback. I want to make that clear. I think you are potentially the number one team with Quinn Ewers at quarterback. We saw why that's the case this weekend, in my opinion. All right, let's keep going. A little bit of this conversation is good because I think, Rod, you and I discussed it. So did you and I, Jerry. I didn't, from Hook'em 4L, I didn't like the complete change in offensive scheme with Arch. Barely any screen game and RPO, which is Sark's bread and butter. Rod, we talked about that in your second watch. What was your takeaway on that? A little bit of it had to do with pre-snap motion and the lack of it there. But what else did you think of there?
No, it's a good point. And I agree with them. We talked about the lack of screen game. And I think that's more about Sark's lack of confidence in Arch's touch on some of the screen passes and being able to, I think he struggled with that a little bit because even him and Jaden Blue couldn't get on the same page on some of those. So I think that's an issue with him. Yes, I agree. The scheme changes. Pre-snap motion has decreased. I think it's decreased a lot. I think the pre-snap motion rate was around between 40 and 45% with Arch in there. Usually it's easily above 55%, right around 55%. That's the average, but it could get higher in bigger games. And that's a cheat code, man. It works all the time. Like it's one of those cheat codes that works at the NFL level and the college level. And to have less of that as one of the conceptual signatures of your offense, so it's going to make your offense a little less effective in some ways. Also, the deep ball. I told you guys the deep ball was good. Yeah. The verticality was going to be added to the offense, but Arch, because all the metrics said that, I did not think they was going to throw, 8 passes in the first half. I not think that was the case. I thought, he was going to go downfield a little bit more, hold on to the ball a little bit more. That was surprising. And I think for Arch, I think Sark will critique him that, hey, don't chase that big play, because he started chasing it after a while. He started off chasing it, actually. That first interception was him chasing that big play. He really wanted that read specifically when if you went through the progression, Jaden Blue was open on the backside on the wheel route. So I think, the offense, it was going to change. I think Sark will get it back within the structure that he likes, meaning try to get him on time and within a rhythm, because he wasn't in a rhythm really the game. I don't think Arch ever got in a rhythm. I think there was a period after the interception where that may have been kind of a rhythm, but not the entire game. I thought he was a little bit off and I thought it was a little bit inconsistent. And Sark, that's why Quinn is so great in Sark's offense now. His time to throw is about 2.2 seconds based on the pre-snap, and then based on how quickly, he gets to his progressions. He knows exactly where he's going with the football. For Arch, you can tell a lot of indecision in Arch's game. And it seems like some of the default was, hey, I'm going to chunk it deep. All right, I got this guy deep. I'm going to throw it deep. And if you got the one-on-one, that's great. But it wasn't always a one-on-one situation. He was just chunking it deep because that was his comfort zone. And so I think he'll get critiqued on that. Yeah, the offense is it can't look the same under Quinn as it did, it can't look the same like it did under Quinn. It can't. There's no offense that's going to look the same. All quarterbacks have their own weaknesses and their strengths and their preferences. and you have to call the plays accordingly. And Sark, as a quarterback, knows that.
And by the way,
Yeah,
Sark will also
I think
throw
you
the ball deep if you've got somebody that can stretch the field.
Yeah.
I would just say this, Rod. I think your point's straight on. I mean, look, you can win football games with a lot of different styles of quarterbacks, right? The ones that usually win them are the ones that are doing and leaning into their strengths, as opposed to round peg, square hole type stuff. You get, and Sark is a quarterback guy first and foremost. So I think he'll find that. Juan Garza asked this question, super chat. Thanks, Juan, for the super chat. What was going on with Sadir Mitchell and his attitude negative on the sidelines, or what? Juan, this is what we need to say about this at this time. I'm gonna tell you what we have heard transpired. We are not going to cast aspersions about whose fault it was or any of this stuff. All we know is that during the third period, Sadir was escorted to the locker room after not being injured and did not return to the sidelines. So for us to say anything more than that would just stoke all kinds of negative attention potentially when we don't know the full story. And I wouldn't say that it's just a one-sided story would be fair either, by the way. So I'll put it that way. All right. William Nish mentions Lianga Lafau is a stud. He did play well, Jerry. I thought the safety was a nice play. He also chased a guy for a sack and then had another tackle for loss, I believe. Young man out of Hawaii is coming on for the Longhorns.
Yeah, I think he's actually the most Rod. I think he's the best pure linebacker in between the tackle boxes.
Oh, I like
playing
that.
the run, instinctive, gap sound, makes plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage, gets there quicker, faster in an instinctive manner. Now, I think he's good in pass coverage. I think if turning runs to the sidelines, that may not be a strength. But I think in between the tackle boxes, he is very instinctive. Probably Texas' best pure linebacker there. Anthony Hill obviously is a different level cat as an all-around player, but Anthony Hill's still learning how to play Mike linebacker. Lianga Lafau is a natural there, and you just know, Rod, he's always going to be in the right spot if he can get there.
Yeah, I mean, your linebacking core is looking bright, right, for the very near future between Lianga Lafau and Anthony Hill and Ty Anthony Smith. I mean, that's a group that right now is showing that they got a lot of upside. Young guys showing a lot of upside early. I agree with you about Lafau. I mean, he's made a ton of plays, and you're right, kind of makes those all within that range. And that's what you need, honestly, in the SEC. That is the solid linebacker you need in the SEC, somebody that can fit within the box there and can be kind of a downhill linebacker, if you will, which you don't get these days. Most linebackers they're kind of spread babies. They're used to operating in space. They don't operate downhill because they don't really see a downhill running game. But I agree with you about that. It's a good point.
Hey, one thing I want to mention before our next question, the best thing for Texas long-term offensively, to me, to come out of the UL Monroe game was I think Sark had been waiting for a chance to really break out that speed vertically because people have been respecting Texas so much. You realize, and UL Monroe had some safety issues. They were good downhill players, but if they had to flip their hips and run, that was not their strength. And Sark obviously saw it on tape. But you had 4 receivers win deep last night.
Mm-hmm.
Olden, Wingo, Bond, and Golden. Has Texas ever had 4 that win deep, guys?
Maybe, but I don't remember it.
Something on tape last night now.
No, you're right.
Hey, speaking of, let's go to this. Let's go to this because this is a tie-in question here, Rod, a little bit. Johnny Epps, assessing the game, getting Jonte the ball more is a need. Having that legit 3-headed monster with Wingo getting his touches is so crucial. I got to ask you, I mean, is Jonte necessarily better than Matthew Golden or Isaiah Bond or Ryan Wingo? I mean, I don't know that Jonte's a top 3 receiver on this team. He may not be a top 4 right now, and that may be why he's not getting the touches. Am I wrong here? Or look, I think he's plenty good. Don't get me wrong. I think they've got 5 really good receivers, and I think DeAndre Morris probably could be in that as well. But I don't know, Johnny. I really don't know what's best. is my point. Maybe Jonte is the answer at some level, but they're scoring 50 points a game. What are you supposed to say? What do you think, Rod? I mean, do we need to force Jonte Cook more, or is that maybe just a recruiting ranking kind of theory there, in your opinion, based on what we've seen so far?
Yeah, first world problems here, right? I mean, I my top three are, and I'm not even going to really go in an order. It's Golden, Bond, and Wingo. Those are my personal top three. But I like all the receivers. I'm with you. I don't think Sark is going to force the issue here now we're going on game 5. I don't think he's going to force it at this point. I do think there's a role for Jonte, but I predicted half of the games this year you'd have a different leading receiver. And I think we're well on that way to having a different leading receiver. And I think that's kind of the theme of this group is that, it could be Golden one day. It could be Bond. It could be, it was Helm. I think that surprised all of us. It could be Wingo. And my hope is that, yes, Jonte Cook will start to have more of a role in the sin. But it seemed like Silas Bowden had his kind of, game that at least where they were trying their best deliberately to, force him the football and force him some touches. That's happened. And I think he's gotten more of that type of attention than Jonte Cook. No, Jonte Cook did just score 2 touchdowns in a UTSA game. So I'm not saying he's not contributing at all. But in terms of coach start trying to scheme guys open, I think he's tried to scheme stuff for Silas Bowden more than he's tried to scheme stuff for Jonte. And maybe that's because he doesn't think Jonte needs to be schemed open. He's like, no, Jonte we can work within the structure of the offense and be fine. But if you're looking for Jonte to become one of the top 3 receivers on the team right now, I don't really see it. I see there's a role for him and he will contribute. I think the top 3 right now is already pretty much solidified who's going to be your top 3 guys. It's going to be Bond, Golden is going to be in there, and I think Wingo is it. I think it's going to be Wingo. But the circle of trust is 6 deep, though. I think it will be 6 deep. It's the
that is true. That is 100% true. We going into this year, we said, is Sark going to really actually play all these guys? And he is. He's playing them all.
He's playing them all.
Yeah.
So the circle of trust, it is as wide as it's ever been. But if you're just trying to talk about the top guys, I think there's starting to be a separation in my eyes a little bit with some of the top guys.
I agree.
All right, let's keep going here. Todd Lacey with Super Chat. Thank you very much, Todd. What are your keys to the Michigan State game? Guys, Michigan State, Mississippi State.
Sorry, don't get a flat tire on the bus on the way to the stadium.
Yeah, I think that Mississippi State gave up a lot of points to a Florida team that has not scored a lot of points in the last couple of months or years, actually. And they didn't really do much on offense until they just started feeding the ball to the running back. And frankly, Florida wasn't going to let them go score easily. They were going to make them earn it by running down the field when they had a 3-score lead. I will add this, most importantly, Mississippi State quarterback for the season, Blake Shapen, is out for the year. He had some kind of lower leg injury, I believe, during that game, went out. They ended up going to a freshman who was not very accurate with the football, to be kind. Yeah. And is a good runner, but didn't look like he was a great runner. I don't know. To be honest, the Mississippi State quarterback for starters may be a good proxy if Michael Hawkins is the starter for Oklahoma and Dallas. That's the very similar type of players and similar types of offenses too, by the way. What do y'all think of the keys of the Mississippi State game are?
Well, the keys are, look, Mississippi State's bad on the offensive line. I mean, they just can't run the football. They ran against Florida, but Florida's terrible on defense. Against Arizona State, they had 24 yards rushing. Against Toledo, 66 yards rushing. The only reason they had 240 on Florida is because they were playing Florida. I mean, and Florida's terrible. So, I mean, they had 292 yards against ASU, 385 against Toledo's really good, but they're giving up 77.3% completions. And let's do the real math real quick. 250-ish yards rushing per game defensively. I mean, they can't stop anything on defense, and offensively, their offensive line's not good. Now they're coming to Austin with a freshman quarterback making his first career start, who's backed up by a redshirt freshman quarterback who's never had a start. I'm not sure it could be a worse situation. And by the way, their top defensive player, safety Isaac Smith, got injured in that game on a blindside hit by Montrell Johnson, and we'll see if he's in concussion protocol and even plays this week. He's their leading tackler.
He's the one that we think may be out, and he was their leading tackler almost by two to one to their next highest tackle.
Well, and it tells you how bad their defense is that their safety has 51 tackles in 4 games.
Yep,
that's not a good number.
Yeah,
Rod, you have anything you're looking for in particular?
It'll be good. The offensive line, right? The offensive line for Texas should win this game for them. Because as Jerry pointed out, you should be able to impose your will and run the ball on Mississippi State. I think only 10 teams in college football allow more rushing yards per game than Mississippi State. That's it. They are terrible rushing. He's talking about they're bad on all areas of defense, but you should be able to line up and kind of just run the ball, impose your will, play bully ball against Mississippi State. And if Arch Manning is starting, that'd be, an easier game plan for him if it's a run-heavy game plan. Now, your running back position, with all the injuries, that's something to consider. But, you just ran Jaden Blue, 25 rushes. So, I guess he's a workhorse now. So, saddle him up again, I guess, versus Mississippi State, and saddle up Jared Gibson. And I think, those guys, you should be able to, run the rock close to 35 times against Mississippi State and convert and keep the football and control the game.
All right, guys. I've got Matt working on something for us. But before I go there, I want to ask Jerry about some recruiting questions because we have 3 in a row here, Jerry. And I'm just going to read them off, and then you can come back to all of them. Jerry, can you talk about upcoming flips? It seems like we have a lot of recruiting momentum right now. That's from MJF. Kim asked, Jerry, can you go over the strengths and weaknesses of Kelshawn Johnson and Daylon McCutcheon, a young man that's committed to Florida State or Texas A&M in the case of Kelshawn Johnson. And then Rick Amberguy, how many DTs end up in this class, Jerry, and how many DTs end up in the portal class? Those are 3 different variations of recruiting. You can take any or all of them, however you want to do it, Jerry.
Yeah. So we'll start with some news. I spoke with Chase Sims, the Richmond Randall 4-star on Texas football 4-star. Everybody else is wrong on his ranking. On Texas football 4-star defensive lineman. He was at A&M this weekend, committed to A&M. A&M tried to get him the cancel visit, not happening. Him and his family's making an official visit to Texas this weekend. I think if everything goes well, chances are pretty high there. High. Walter Mathis confirmed that him and his family, the LSU commitment out of Savannah, Calvary Day, defensive lineman, who I think maybe one of the most underrated in the country. He's still scheduled to come in this weekend. We'll see. That would be a 2-visit scenario, I think. I think get him on campus once with his family for an unofficial. Things go well, come back with an unofficial later in November or something like that. So that's 2 defensive linemen that'll be on campus this weekend. And I think those are big guys for Texas because I think they're both really, really good football players. And Chase Sims is very, very good. He was tremendous when I saw him Thursday. Daylon McCutcheon, Kelshawn Johnson. Daylon McCutcheon will be at the game this weekend. FSU commitment out of Lovejoy High. Kelshawn Johnson out of Hitchcock, committed to Texas A&M, is going to come to the Georgia game along. I think he's coming with Jonah Williams or maybe his mom. It depending on if she's a nurse, depending on if she's working that weekend. Kelshawn Johnson is a speed demon. Would remind you of Isaiah Bond. That's who it reminds you of. I mean, he's a guy that has electric speed, would be a 10-2, 5, 10, 300-meter guy if he ever concentrated on track. He's got that type of burners. And his 0 to 60 is about 2.25 steps, too. So he's a fast starter. Daylon McCutcheon's more in the mold of DeAndre Moore for me. And I think I could see him being very similar to DeAndre Moore at the college level. So if you're looking for that, what the differences are, that's kind of the differences in those 2 guys. And I'm not saying Kelshawn's going to be as good as Isaiah Bond. What I am saying is he has that type of juice athletically. Like if he caught that swing pass and turned the sidelines against UTSA, it would look similar after a year in college, being a strength and conditioning program. That's the differences there. the line class is going to be 4 for sure, maybe 5. It depends on if it's correct 5. It's not
Portal is going to be interesting. Portal at D tackle.
I think Portal 1 or 2.
Look, they're set to lose at least 4.
Probably 2.
I mean, set to lose at least 4, and you can't replace those with freshmen.
No,
that won't work, and it doesn't matter how good those freshmen are.
It could be 3 in the portal because, see what if Sadir Mitchell's days are numbered. If Dre Bledsoe doesn't play much this year, does he go get on the field as last year of college football? He probably should. So they could end up being 3 out of the portal.
Yeah. All right. Look, let's go. I got a couple of things for you guys. This is oh, wow.
Whoa.
Brian,
he's not off more than he can choose. Mississippi State coming to town.
Week 4 Super Chat match. Thoroughly enjoy all the content y'all put out. Maybe others will join me in matching for the conference games. Hook 'em. Thanks, Brian.
Right.
We appreciate it, buddy. All right. This one is going to be for guys that wonder, 2 years ago, there was a situation where Sonny Dykes was leading his team to the national championship game while Steve Sarkisian had an 8-5 record, got beat by Sonny Dykes. This is a tweet from November 13th, 2022, from Richard Justice, a longtime Houston columnist, but also across different parts of Texas and even the country. The Longhorns AD, Chris Del Conte, wanted Sonny Dykes. A booster demanded Steve Sarkisian. How's that working out, buddy? Kevin Sherrington and Kirk Bowles are on it. The interesting thing here is that was obviously from November 13th. And I asked y'all this now. How's that working out for you, buddy? Yeah. Richard Justice, I think that this is why you can keep receipts because I think Sonny Dykes got scored 60 on against SMU over the weekend and got kicked out of the game for back-to-back personal foul penalties on him. So look, how do you like me now? I guess is the question I have for that. And I do give credit to this for the tweet from a account called Freezing Cold Takes.
That's
Freezing
right.
Cold Takes.
Nice.
All right, next one. This is a bit of a bad news scenario because you never want to see kids get injured. But we all followed the recruitment of Harold Perkins out of the Cypress area. He went to LSU and was a tremendous player for LSU. It was announced just moments ago, about 15, 20 minutes ago, that Harold Perkins is now expected to miss the rest of the season due to a knee injury he suffered against UCLA in the LSU win yesterday out in Southern California. It's believed to be a torn ACL.
They had already lost their top D lineman, interior D lineman for the season as well. So that's
they're not playing defense anyways, Jerry.
They're
no offense to. They're not playing defense very well.
Their schedule the rest of the way is not real. Is not real good. And you know who's coming to town this week? Ryan Nelson pointed it out. Somebody with a lot of confidence coming home, baby. Coaching a game in Baton Rouge, Major Applewhite in South Alabama.
Oh,
he's been for the upset.
They've been running the rock too, dog. They've been running the rock, South Alabama.
They got a quarterback that reminds you a little bit of Pavia at Vanderbilt in a weird way. Just a playmaker, undersized playmaker, can get the ball to playmakers. LSU better be very careful Saturday.
This one comes in from Greg Jackson. Just like this one. No way I'd play Quinn Saturday, but then I wouldn't have given Blue 25 carries either. I think we could all say,
totally agree.
You agree?
Totally agree. I agree. I said during the live watch, I was like, I don't know why we're showcasing Jaden Blue like this.
Let me ask you this.
Maybe,
Rod and Jerry, how much of that was Sark saying we're going to run inside zone, guys? We have not run inside zone much at all this year. I'll be damned. We're going to run that, and we're going to run it a lot. And they did. It's really the first time that there's been a all season long where he's forced a steady diet of that.
I think going into SEC play, he wanted to, reaffirm his commitment and dedication to pounding the rock if he has to, because he figures in SEC play, yes, Texas, they are led with their pass. That is the identity because the passing game opens up the running game. But, Sark, he still wants to have that identity where he can line up and play bully ball if he needs to and just and showcase those big humans. And I think that's, even though they're not elite in that necessarily, they showed versus ULM that, hey, man, when they won that drive in the third quarter, that Jaden Blue drive you talk about, 66-yard touchdown drive, he had 63 or something, 64 out of the 66 yards. That was, I think, Sark, reaffirming his commitment to it.
Yeah, so I think I have two thoughts on it. One, Jarrett Gibson re-rolling his ankle early in that game probably meant more of a workload for Jaden Blue because Weisner's out with a hamstring, not an ankle. By the way, I was told that today. And he had that left hamstring wrapped in pregame warm-ups. And I just don't think Arch was playing at a high enough level for Sark. I think Sark had to run the ball probably a little more than he wanted to.
Okay, I agree with that. That's not bad. Well, young.
All right, Rod, please do us a favor and tell folks out there about our friends over at the Rogue Shop.
Yes, sir. We are very grateful to our one of our great sponsors, RogueShop.com. Rogue Shop is bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. Rogue Shop ships nationwide, so it doesn't matter where you are. They can ship their fantastic products to you. Make sure you use the promo code on Texas. You'll get a special discount when you use that code on Texas. The Rogue Shop has it all, folks, from oils and creams, flour and gummies. Again, that's RogueShop.com. Make sure you use that special code, that promo code on Texas, and you will get a great discount from our friends over at RogueShop.com. Really appreciate them for sponsoring our Sunday night live stream here on Texas Football.
All right, the Nigel Roberts. Matt, you already pulled it up before I was even ready. Blake Monroe, breaking this news just moments ago. Longhorns go into the state of Kansas and pick up a left-handed pitcher named Tucker Thompson. He just committed literally minutes ago. Tucker Thompson out of Gardner, Kansas, I believe, is now committed to Texas. He chose Texas over defending national champion Tennessee, which has been very aggressive on the NIL front in baseball, as well as Ole Miss and Oregon. It is capping a big recruiting run in the last week or so for the Longhorns. It really started on Thursday, extended into Saturday, and even now today. Longhorns trying to really break through in this 2026 recruiting class. Tucker Thompson, left-handed pitcher out of Kansas. All right, let's go to Nigel Robertson here. Is Tennessee that good, or is the OVU offense that bad? Now, I want to tell you guys this. I rewatched the Texas game today. That was the first thing I did when I got up, right? The second thing I did is I watched Tennessee OU in its entirety. The Tennessee defense is good. I don't know if it's world-beating good, but it is good. Okay. OU had no chance because OU's offensive line is not good. And so it didn't matter who the quarterback was at OU. Jackson Arnold is a turnover machine.
Yeah.
And Brent Venables in his post-game press conference, I was watching that before we came on today, was talking about how they gave Tennessee 12 points in the first half just off of turnovers, straight turnovers. And so they went with Michael Hawkins in the second half. Hawkins led OU to 2 touchdowns, but both of those touchdowns, I don't know how to say this, but one of them was, I guess, well-earned. The second one, Tennessee was in a prevent defense. And look, Michael Hawkins is a good player.
Very good.
He's good right now as a playmaker. He's not a really good quarterback right now.
I will say this, though. If your first real game action's against Tennessee, in any situation, you go 11-18 for 132 and you run the ball and you stay on your feet effectively, you're going to be a good player when your offensive line's bad.
I think he took 5 sacks. I'm just telling you, he as a passer, Jerry, did not look good. Didn't look horrible, but did not look good. All right.
He also doesn't have anybody to throw to right now there either.
Yeah, that's true. Jaquez Petaway looked pretty good. Texas Texas former Texas player Brendan Thompson got a bigger piece of the pie now there as well. Obviously, with Deion Burks out and Nick Anderson, their receiving unit guys is not what it once was. That's fair.
By the way, on Tennessee, I mean, Oklahoma, for those that didn't see the game, had 222 total yards. And their offensive line. And the other issue they have is they just Oklahoma has, I mean, Nick Anderson went out. Deion Burks went out. Farouk's already out. Andrew Anthony has not fully recovered from his knee injury. They got real injury issues. Now their defensive guys, Gentry Williams is out. I'm not sure if it's for the year. If anybody knows that in the chat, I'm not sure Oklahoma's said. Some people are speculating. Now their Cheetah's out for the year. They got some real injury issues. And I know Auburn's a disaster right now, especially at quarterback. Boy, Auburn and FSU in the portal right next to each other. At quarterback didn't get it done. But Auburn's going to be fighting for their season life Saturday when when Oklahoma comes to town. That's gonna be
I was gonna say OU goes straight to Auburn this weekend after hosting Tennessee. Auburn lost to Arkansas over the weekend in Auburn. Georgia goes to Bama. That's another big one. Another sneaky one in the SEC this weekend will be Kentucky going to Ole Miss. And the reason I say it's sneaky is because Kentucky held Georgia to so few points. So this may be the first legit defense that Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart see. Now, if Lane Kiffin gets out and scores 21 points, I wonder if Kentucky could play catch up.
No chance.
So that may be the issue there. All right, let's go to a different question. I really like this one. This one from Big Hulk 24. Did the second string OL do well? I think they did. I mean, they marched down the field and scored a touchdown with no passes in the fourth quarter. Texas did not throw the ball, a single pass in the fourth quarter, yet scored a touchdown and moved the ball on another possession. That was all with the second string offensive line. Now, if you're asking me about individual performances within that group, I'm a little light on that. I didn't really break down the individual player performance on the second string OL, but clearly they did pretty good. And I want to add this because it kind of dovetails. Is Colin, and this from Freshwater Cajun, is Colin Page good? Would you rank him above, below, different than Niblett? He's absolutely categorically different than Niblett, not necessarily above or below. I think Colin Page actually has better vision maybe than a young Jarrett Gibson. That's going to be a thing that we need to wait on, but I think Gibson just provides a little toughness between the tackles that I don't know that Colin Page would naturally have.
Colin Page is, and obviously, I'm not saying he's going to leave, but he's playing himself into a position where if he wanted to jump into the portal after this year, he could go play a lot for a start for G5 teams.
There you go.
He looks like that level guy, and when you put him behind big offensive line, I think he's a good football player. He's better than I thought. I'll say that. Yeah, he can play for a lot of teams.
He's got 2 explosive runs this year.
Yeah. No, he does. I agree with you. No, he impresses me too. Yeah. No, he impresses when he's out there. I agree with you. He runs tough, and I agree. I like his vision. Hard to bring down too. Like doesn't go down with first contact. He's got something to him. I agree with that.
I want to go back to this with you guys as well. From Sean, do you guys feel as if Ryan Niblett can play a Keelan Robinson type role throughout the rest of the season? I don't know if he's as an adult as Keelan Robinson was, powerful. Like Keelan Robinson was truly a powerful player for being fairly small. Now I think Ryan Niblett might end up there and is willing to give up his body to do that. But one of my favorite things of all night last night was watching Ryan Niblett celebrate. You talk about a guy that wants to be good at football and wants to have fun on a football field. He looked like one of those type of guys that everybody roots for. You know what I mean by that? Like they see him, the joy he has of playing football and how hard he plays. I got a kick out of that. And Keelan Robinson was somewhat similar in that fashion, right?
You know what?
He did. You felt some juice.
You know why I give Ryan Niblett the ultimate respect? If I told you that you're at a school and they lose all three starters, and then they bring in a guy named Ryan Wingo, everybody knows this ranked high, and they bring in 3 guys from the portal, most guys would have transferred in today's day and age of football. Not only did he not transfer, but he's become a guy that Sark feels like this is part of our culture, Warriors. And by the way, he's fast, so it's easy to get fast guys on the field. But that dude's earning it. He's tip of the hat for not walking out the door, because he was a guy we wondered if he'd stay when they were.
Dude, I love that, Jerry. I love the term "culture warrior." I love that because it's very evocative. It's very evocative. You understand what it means right when you say it. You know what I mean by that? Because it's Juan Davis, culture warrior, right? I mean, you get it. And so, Rob, what do you think about the role, though, that Niblett can play? Because he is playing a little bit of running back now, like Keelan Robinson did. They'll run him out on those quick throws to the outside, et cetera, set up a little screen for him every once in a while. What do you think of that role for him?
I like that role for him. I remember the little swing screen they basically ran for him with Gunnar Helm as the lead blocker. I do, and I think if he can carve out a role as that Keelan Robinson-esque player for Texas, and you'll get back to Pony Package. Pony Package has largely started to disappear, and I understand why. I mean, you don't have the bodies. You can't risk having 2 running backs out there where you don't necessarily have depth at the running back position anyway. So you get more single back sets. So you haven't seen a lot of Pony Package, and maybe if you can get a guy like Ryan Niblett to start to contribute in that fashion, you can start to bring back some of those elements in the offense. So you're missing some, that was your most explosive, most efficient, and most effective personnel grouping last season. And now, because of the injuries, it's largely a non-factor in the offense. And I understand, like I said, I'm not criticizing it, but just pointing it out as an observation. And maybe Ryan Niblett can aid you in that cause and bringing it back.
Rod, this is a question for you I'm going to follow up with. Rod, who were the culture warriors when you played? Who were a couple of guys that kind of got the most out of themselves that weren't necessarily destined for the NFL?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. Culture warriors. I think Richard Hightower was one of the guys that comes to mind for me. Earned a scholarship, nice coaching with the Chicago Bears. Mostly a special teams guy, but earned the respect of everybody on the team by the way he practiced and the way the way that he worked and his dedication and commitment to the team. I'm trying to think of some other guys who I consider to be those kind of culture warriors. I think guys like Greg Brown was kind of like that for us when I first got there. He was considered one of those culture warriors that really embodied the culture. And I was a young DB, so I remember that. Bo Tron was a good, that's a good one. Yeah, Bo Tron was a good one.
That's from the chat. Timothy Wooten, good job.
Yeah.
Mark Hall was a little bit after you, right?
Yeah, I didn't play them all. But it's a little bit different. Yeah, it was just those guys have always existed in some way. I think now, because of the transfer portal NIL, it holds a different meaning. Those guys has a different significance because those guys do have back then. The truth is, those guys who were culture warriors, they have no choice. They had to stay there. They weren't going anywhere else. Now you have guys like Rojo and Jay Witt who end up being those culture bearers on your team, and they did it by choice. They could have gone elsewhere and played. They could have gone somewhere else and reinvent themselves. They didn't want to go elsewhere. They wanted their legacy to be at Texas. You know what I mean? That's I would always say there are certain guys who come to play at Texas and other guys who come to play for Texas. Those are the 4 Texas guys. Yeah. Juan Davis is a 4 Texas guy. He's like, I can go somewhere else. I don't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
I don't want to play anywhere else. All right, I want to play here. And if I gotta be 3rd string here, well, you know what? That's my fate. And now we realize that's a hell of a sacrifice. You can go somewhere else and make some money. You can go somewhere else and potentially, start and get more reps and improve your draft stock. And those guys decide, no, the University of Texas and my legacy here on the 40 acres, that's what matters to me. I want to leave it better than I found it. I want to win games here. I want to win championships here. That's why we're so, infatuated with Arch Manning. Not just because he's a Manning, but he's choosing Texas.
Right.
He could choose anywhere. He chose to come here, but also chose to wait and say, no, my legacy will be at Texas, guys. I could go elsewhere, and play right now and start my legacy. But my legacy will be connected forever to the University of Texas. The guys who are making that choice, that is different than the guys who I played with. But we didn't have that choice. We didn't have the choice to go somewhere else and make more money and also, get more playing time. Trust me, a lot of guys would have left.
And you would have had to sit a year. And you would have had to sit a year.
Yeah, those guys will trust me. And
your back was against the wall.
Yeah, but these guys, they're making a separate type of choice, a very different choice. And I admire them for it. Because in my opinion, I don't know if I'd be in that position if I would have decided I got to stay. Because I would love Texas, but I also wanted to play. And I wanted to go to the NFL. And some guys just, I know they're going to take the risk, like Jay Witt or Rojo, and say, no, if my NFL draft stock is affected, by me staying here in Texas and, being in a backup role or a subsidiary role, I'll take that, because that's what means more to me is that that legacy of being connected to Texas. It's powerful. It is profound. And I admire these guys. Those are the real culture warriors. I admire them for it.
All right. Hey, Rod, you made a comment that Jonte may not be in the top 3 at receiver. UT boy says, easy, Rod.
Hey.
Easy, Rod. He loves him some Jonte. This one, also Steve Rupert asked, what's going on with Tassili Akana? I haven't seen him on the field much. He has not played as much. I think he's running a clear 3rd team right now, if not 4th team. So we just, he's got to keep
adding weight. I watched all those guys work out. I was sitting by the end zone when they came out to warm up before they had pads on. He's got to keep adding mass to his frame.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I got a couple other things for you here. Big Hulk. Phil Dawson inducted to the Hall of Fame for the Cleveland Browns today. Congratulations, Phil. Also, congratulations as a reminder for those that didn't hear about it on Friday or over the weekend. To Colt McCoy, Alex Okafor, as well as Marquise Goodwin in their induction into the UT Hall of Honor as well. Damian Graham has this question. What are everyone's thoughts on this dramatic turnaround in the defensive backfield from last year to this year? And what is the number one key for that? Mine are, I think it's tremendous. I think that they're challenging opponents more like they did late last year. They took a little bit of what they started doing late last year and took it into this year. I think Manny Muhammad particularly helps a lot with that. I think the football IQ helps a lot with it. I want to say this. My number one key, other than experience, is the addition of Scott Hazelton as Nichols coach. Because you used to have 2 different positions, nickel and corner, being taught by one coach. Mm-hmm. Now you have a separate nickel coach, as well as a safety coach, as well as a corner coach. And Hazelton is known as a bright defensive mind. So if I had to say the number one key to that outside of the players, it would be the addition of that extra coach. Rod, you're a former DB. What do you got for us?
No, I like that, Bobby. I like that the individual coaching, right? The individual attention the guys are getting. I'm going to say the number one thing overall, because I think there are little things. I think Bobby's right about them being more situational. Their situational awareness, I think, now is heightened. I think the communication, notice how much they talk now. Just look at them. They're constantly chatting. They're chatty Cathy's back there, man. It's good, though. They're good because a confident defense talks a lot. They're confident, so they're just talking to each other. They're very confident, right? Because everybody is confident in what they're seeing, so they're trying to communicate to each other. So I think that's a big part of it. But honestly, I just think this Sark's buzzword, I think, is going to be the biggest factor is the versatility of the scheme and the versatility of your players now. I think they were very specialized and I think almost rigid in their specialization last year and the roles that guys were going to play. But now, man, you got Jahdae Barron moving all over the place. You got Makuba moving all over the place. You got, they're throwing out, Jelani McDonald. He's playing nickel and he's also playing, some corner. And they got guys moving all over the place. It is just, to me, the versatility in it is kind of mind-blowing. And the scheme is also more versatile than it used to be. Now they have, we're playing 3 high safeties and more single high than ever before, and 2 high safeties, and they got a NASCAR package now, and they got a dime package they're finally using because of the depth at DB. And I think the coverages now, I'm seeing more split field coverages. I'm seeing more combo coverages, and I've seen
Johnny Nansen impact, Rod.
Yeah, and I'm seeing more disguise. Have you noticed how the guys are disguising more now before the snap? So that's, to me, I think it's just versatility, and versatility allows you to disguise more. So I agree with that. I think it's the Johnny Nansen effect, and I think ultimately it's versatility is what I'm going to champion there.
And I'll say the other, and look, I think Texas secondary, I think safety positions dramatically improve. I think Scotty Hazelton at nickel, and I think Manny Muhammad's a stud as a sophomore. I think Jahdae Barrett's played really well second at corner. You know what else helps your secondary? Fowler, Nicolsi, Davis, Warren, Owen McCown, and General Booty.
Yeah, it does. They haven't played great quarterbacks.
That's true.
Or offenses yet.
Yeah, they're
good. They're improved. They're really good. They're improved.
Yeah, they're passing off better. They're not getting beat deep right now. Another breaking commitment here. Blake Monroe's been busy this weekend. He didn't even know he's going to be busy. Breaking again. The Longhorns have received a commitment from Katie Taylor, left-handed pitcher Bryce Korenik. The 6'2", 215-pounder visited Texas on Saturday and committed during his visit. He is a 2026 prospect. I think that's the third left-handed pitcher for the Longhorns in the last 4 days. I don't even know that they had 2 on their roster last year. So Jim Schlossnagle trying to do a little work here for Texas baseball. Congrats to them as they move forward in this 2026 recruiting class. Hey, Jeff Carey has a couple for us, guys. Guys, I was not impressed with Michigan. I think they will probably lose 3 more games. Jeff also asked, what is the fastest 40 clocked in the world? I wasn't impressed with Michigan either. I'll just be honest. Although they were able to run the ball. Oh, offensively. Yes. Yeah. I was not impressed with them offensively. I was impressed with them defensively. And I think I said this at some point. Lincoln Riley did not have as good a game plan as Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, crazy.
Did not.
No, you know what's crazy too, though, watching a little bit of that game? Zechariah Branch would fit in well at Texas. But other than that, Texas had a lot more speed than USC.
Yeah, USC had bigger guys.
Yeah.
Jacoby Lane, those kind of guys are bigger guys. They're not necessarily burners.
So as far as Michigan's schedule, Minnesota at home, that should be a win. At Washington will be a win. At Illinois, tough game. Michigan State at home, win. Oregon at home, probably loss. At Indiana, that's a 9-win team, loss. Northwestern looks like a G5 team. That's a win at Ohio State. So if they go 8-4 with their offense, they've actually had a pretty good year.
There's no chance. Look, they've got to change quarterbacks because you can't only pass for 32 yards.
No.
By the way, one other thing that to mention in that, Jeff, Michigan was without their tight end, who I think is their best offensive player.
Oh, yeah. Love Lane.
Except perhaps this running back. He's good too. But the Mullins guy.
And Jeff wants to know the fastest 40 time in the world. I don't know the fastest 40 time in the world. I imagine a track star probably can run a crazy 40 time. I know Usain Bolt ran like a 4.2 in like sandals once. In like NFL. No, I'm not joking. You can look it up. He was like in sandals. But Bo Jackson claims he ran a 4.12 like electronic time. He actually claims he did. So I don't know if that he said it was recorded and there were witnesses to Bo Jackson's 4.12 he ran at Auburn. Throwing it out.
I don't doubt it.
I've heard of one faster than that. That's crazy.
I will say this: of all the athletes I've seen, he is the one that is probably the most well-rounded, plus-sized athlete I've ever seen.
Right.
Does that make sense to you? Like the bulky kind of power athlete?
No doubt.
Yeah.
The guys you said in Texas are recruiting in this class. Did y'all say that's basically what they're recruiting more of now? These big.
They are, but Bo Jackson's a different animal than those guys too.
Yeah, they're not Bo Jackson. Nobody. The bigger athletes, though. Bigger athletes, yes. Plus
bigger athletes that still run exceedingly well.
Yes,
is what you're getting at, Rod. Ryan Nelson, I don't know what this was about. Maybe just talking about what UConn did and maybe what Tom Herman did not. UConn beat FAU 48-14. UConn, 66 rushes, 421 yards.
Oh, no.
You know, I wonder if UConn used the quarterback run game in that one.
I got some advice off that super chat. Hey, Tom Herman's daughter, let's keep it down on Twitter right this year. Keep it down a little bit more.
Oh, was she talking a little bit?
He said Tom Herman had a better record through how many games versus Steve Sarkisian. Keep that down.
Yeah.
Keep that tweet up. Keep that
Let
down.
it go. Let it go. Move on. Come on.
Yes, absolutely. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it for tonight. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow morning with coffee and football per usual. But I hope you enjoyed yourselves. We had a good time here with you guys as well. Thank you to Rogue Shop. Again, rogueshop.com. Make sure you use code ONTexas for a free discount there. Also, thank you to Juan Garza, Todd Lacey, UT Boy, Jeff Carey, as well as Ryan Nelson. And particularly thank you to Brian Berg. It was really, really nice of you. We appreciate you guys. Look, Longhorns are 4-0. Yes, if you're not going to bed tonight with a smile on your face and waking up with a smile on your face tomorrow morning, other than the fact that you got to go to work for the week, I don't know what to tell you. Longhorns are in really, really good situation.
Can I leave with a prediction?
You can do whatever you want to, Jerry Hamilton.
I think we're going to see Mac Brown recruiting at Miami Central again soon, making a start.
I'm killing myself out here on the road, Jerry.
Yeah, it's about to come back.
I look, Mac. For those that missed this, Mac apparently told his team that if he can't, they gave up 60. Was that right? To JMU, 70 to James Madison University, which just became an FBS school, by the way. 2 years ago, gave up 70. Now they scored 50,
still,
but they gave up 53 in the first half alone. And Mac told his team after the game, "Hey, look, if we can't get this fixed, I'll retire." Some people misunderstood that comment from Mac. And so he had to explain in post game that he was not retiring, that he was trying to fix it. So look, nobody wants to see. I wish Mac Brown nothing but the best.
Exactly.
And so I mean, it's just it's tough, but you got to realize that those kind of things do not look good. Gene Chizik is his defensive coordinator, who helped Texas as defensive coordinator win a national championship as well. All right, that'll do it for us tonight. Rod B, thank you very much. Jerry Hamilton, as always. Our producer behind the scenes, the great Matthew Hutchinson, thank you as well. And thanks to all you for joining us. You guys have a good week. And hook 'em, guys. Texas, #1 in the country.